Listen, when you sit back and relax and you think about the history of the European League of Football, where it's come, where it's at now, there's no way you could write the history of the foundation of the European League of Football without talking about these guys.
We doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them.
Yeah. That's right. I want to do a little history lesson with you guys today and talk about some fundamental guys that are part of the foundation, the history, what helped get the league to season 5 where we're at right now. Because you can't write the history of the league without at least mentioning these guys. All right. So where did I come up with this idea? I was thinking about it as I made my last video, the Paris video, which you can find on my YouTube page if you want to check it out, where I broke down kind of the impact of Jack Del Rio, but more so what his experience, his background has helped the league grow to where it's at today, and it's continuing to grow. So with that being said, because we are getting new faces, new viewers, this is a little history lesson for you guys in regards to guys that have played overseas but helped create this league from an athlete standpoint within the first 2 seasons of this. So in order to break this down and give you guys some clarity, here's some quick rules, how I did this. This is a list of just 10 guys that are no longer playing in the ELF. And they had some type of impact, right? So again, for warning, you're not going to see your Kyle Kitchens, your Zach Edwards, your Jadrian Clarks, your Glenn Tungas, your Markel Castles, Malik Stanleys of the world. You're not going to see a lot of those guys because those guys played recently. And I really wanted to focus on some guys that haven't been in the league the past couple of years, but were part of the development of the league within the first 2 years. Another thing you're going to see, a lot of offensive players. I'm just going to give you the warning now. You're going to see a lot of offensive players just because, as I mentioned before, a lot of defensive players are still currently playing in the league, right? Still currently playing in the league. So, with that being said, let's dive into this list. And locker room, you know how this works. Drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think about it. Let's hash it out. All right. And then, of course, share, subscribe, join. Let's keep these conversations going. So let's dive into it. Name number 1 who I want to dive into on my list. Again, you can't write the history of the ELF. These are the foundational players. But, before there was a Devin Burrell, right, defensive back, awesome kick returner, there was an Alpha Jalla. Alpha Jalla playing for the Leipzig Kings. He was the return specialist, the playmaker, the guy who really did it on both sides of the ball, right? Shout out to the Leipzig Kings. Rest in peace to the kingdom. But he was one of the foundational playmakers, especially in year 1, making splash plays all over. And he was really considered the first, I would say, athlete, right? Again, because he primarily a corner and special teams player, but he did get some plays on offense as well. So Alpha Jalla comes in at number 10 for a name that you should definitely remember. All right, coming in at number 9. This is a guy that had a short stint in the European League of Football. Really, in year 2, played for one of the new teams, the Istanbul Rams, but really didn't come into the mix until later in the season. All right, and that's quarterback Isaiah Green. Now, this is a guy that only played 6 games, but his impact was there. You talk about an Istanbul Rams team that struggling just to compete from a homegrown talent perspective. And this was really, his impact really made a mark in the European League of Football. Why you say that? Well, during year 2 of the European League of Football, there was a team out in Spain called the Barcelona Dragons, which was one of the top, I'd probably say, top teams the ELF has ever had. The 2022 Barcelona Dragons were a fun team to watch. Your favorite team's favorite team, led by Andrew Weidinger, Zach Edwards, Kyle Sweet, and the gang, and they were explosive, and they definitely made a mark on the league. Well, they traveled to Turkey, and they lost to probably one of the most upsetting losses, and a loss that will resonate throughout the history of the ELF, and it was to Isaiah Green and them boys, Terrion Robinson, Zach Blair and the gang, and they gave it to him. And in six games, Isaiah Green threw for 1,550 yards. He had 11 touchdowns and 3 interception ratio, and he made he made a bad team competitive. And it wasn't just the Barcelona Dragons. Later on that season, they would go to Hamburg and take the Hamburg Sea Devils, who at the time had historically the best defense the ELF has ever seen, took them into overtime, almost beat them. Hamburg will eventually go on to the championship to play the Vienna Vikings. We know how that story runs out. But Isaiah Green, you can't write the history of this game without talking about Isaiah Green. And why is he not in the league? Why he hasn't had the opportunity, I'm not sure. I know the following season he did sign with Hamburg halfway through. Didn't really get an opportunity to even get on the field. I'm not sure what happened, but Isaiah Green, a name you should definitely remember, right? Number 8. This guy is the first and only one who has done it on a consistent basis, and that's Jan Wainwright, a homegrown quarterback, started since year 1, played 2 seasons as a homegrown quarterback for Cologne, and there hasn't been anyone close to being a homegrown at that position to consistently have played or start that many games. So Jan Wainwright, his first season, it was all about Madre London. No other way to cut about it. Plain dry. I think we all knew that. However, second season, when Frank Rozier comes in at head coach, Jan Wainwright is the quarterback. Quentin Pounds, you have at receiver. And they were an explosive offense. They ran into a buzzsaw when they got to Barcelona. It might have been like week 4, week 5, something like that, which is probably one of the better games in ELF history. And I've talked about that. I'll drop a link to that video too, where we talk about some of the top games in ELF history. But Jan Wainwright, homegrown quarterback, is something that I personally have been dying to see since he no longer plays in the ELF. Get it. I know he had a short stint with Stuttgart, so this is kind of an anomaly in regards to like the rules. But this guy really proved to show that you could build a quality team with a homegrown quarterback if you have the right guy. You think about him, obviously, in year 2, probably one of the top offenses in year 2, only halfway through again. But Jan Wainwright comes in at number 8 because, again, we haven't seen a homegrown quarterback since. And if we do, he has some big shoes to fill. So let's go to number 7. This one of my favorite guys. I didn't really get the opportunity to talk to him much, but it's a guy who was here in year 1 and went into retirement after. And I'm talking about quarterback for the Leipzig Kings, Michael Birdsong. Michael Birdsong. What was his impact in the league? Well, let me tell you. Played the first couple of games in year 1, and then got hurt. He didn't come back to about week 7, so he played about like the first 2-3 weeks, and then he was out, and then came back week 7. At that time, Leipzig was struggling. Again, they weren't really considered a playoff team. But what did he do when he came back? When he came back, 1,597 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, a 6 interception ratio, tied for first when it comes to passing. He went on a 4-game win streak. They beat who would then go on to the ELF Championship Hamburg Sea Devils 18-17. And then again went on that 4-game win streak before losing to the Russell Panthers late in the season, not able to get into the playoffs because of that loss, but he was also an MVP candidate. So you're talking about a guy, played the first 3 weeks, didn't play again till week 7, still came back, had that type of impact. And because of his impact, again, tied for first when it comes to touchdowns, almost brought Leipzig to the playoffs, crucial big wins along the way. Michael Birdsong, MVP runner-up, Michael Birdsong was a dog. And I wish he at least gave us one more year. I don't know what he would have done. But Leipzig, obviously, we saw how that panned out. But Michael Birdsong, one of my favorite guys who I like to watch in year 1, a name you should definitely hear. Again, you can't write the history without talking about Michael Birdsong in European League of Football. So I'm trying to drop some knowledge on you guys. But, again, drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Coming in at number 6, ELF alumni. This is a guy, he only played 4 games. Right, this is a guy who got bigger and better opportunities, and I'm talking about KaVontae Turpin. KaVontae Turpin, receiver, return specialist for the Russell Panthers, will go on playing the UFL for the New Jersey Generals, but now he's been a 2-time Pro Bowler for the Dallas Cowboys, and he's making a mark for himself in and on the biggest stage when it comes to football. Again, short-lived, but in the 4 games, he had about 702 all-purpose yards. His biggest game came against the rivals, Hamburg Sea Devils, which, again, the Russell Panthers versus the Hamburg Sea Devils, one of the better rivals in the European League of Football, just dropping some knowledge. There's some real hate between those two teams, the black and blue rivalry, who I like to call it. But in that game, his impact, 293 total yards in the win. All right, KaVontae Turpin, one of the top alumni in the European League of Football, and again, you hear the name and you think, "Wow, this guy played." Yeah, this guy played, and you can't write the history without talking about KaVontae Turpin and his impact. So, what would the Panthers go on to do once Turpin left? Just the name I'm going to throw out there. He's not in this list just yet. But Tony Tate, and we saw how that panned out, and that was another guy that made a mark on the league. So Panthers got a knack for finding good receivers. Obviously, they just signed Ott. They got Darrell Stewart Jr., again, to pair up with Mazan and Bernat. So Panthers might be a dangerous team, but coming in season 5, when you think about that. But we'll see. But KaVontae Turpin, wanted to throw that name out for you guys. All right, here we go. Number 5, where we're at. Oh, an OG. Kasim Edebali, former NFL player, played and led the team in sacks for what was the most historic defense in European League football, the Hamburg Sea Devil defense, year 2, led by Kentrell Ellison. Obviously, the following year, he got the Munich Ravens head coaching job, and he's still there. But that defense, you talk about J.P. Bomback, you talk about Miguel, you talk about Justin Rogers, you talk about Tim Haney. That defense was loaded, and it's unfortunate that they didn't finish the mission. But Kasim Edebali, when you think about him, 12 sacks on the best defense in ELF history, 3 multi-sack games. So 3 were games where he had at least 2 sacks or more. 8 games with at least 1 sack. All right. Again, they were going to lose to the Vikings, but Kasim Edebali, one and done. He was a vet, came in, did what he was supposed to do, help, again, develop the foundation of the league and set the expectations and, help grow the game as well, too. So Kasim Edebali comes in at number 5. We're starting to dwindle down the list a little bit. Who we got at number 4? Mr. Gene Constant. Gene Constant, the ELF's first 1,000-yard receiver, right? Again, that first game or first season in ELF wasn't a lot of teams, only 8 teams. They only played about 10 games, I believe. But he was the first 1,000-yard receiver. He would go to Hamburg the following year, almost cracked 1,000. He was at like 900 some change. But you saw what he did against Barcelona, against a really bad Barcelona team in their first year. Obviously, we saw the transformation in year 2. And Zach wasn't Zach back then in terms of what he is now. But a lot of the team wasn't. You had a young Alejandro Fernandez. Again, you had Remy Bertolin. You had some guys. Offensive line wasn't really what we thought it was. But Andy Vera at corner. You got the Bernani brothers, Alex Posito. So you got some guys there. But Gene Constant, first 1,000-yard receiver in the ELF. 74 catches, 1,030 yards, 8 touchdowns, led the league. So that's a name you can't forget. That's a name you cannot forget. Again, this is another anomaly because now I'm thinking off the top of my head. He played for Milan, too. All right, next one. Number 3, a one-and-done guy, probably Russell's best quarterback, and that's Lucas O'Connor. Lucas O'Connor led the league in touchdowns. Again, tied with Birdsong for 24 touchdowns in that year, 11 interceptions, though. Led the league in passing yards, 2,879 passing yards. Best quarterback the Panthers have ever had. You look at the Panthers and what they've done leading up to this point in regards to quarterbacks, the amount of quarterbacks that have come and gone. So the fact that this guy stayed and performed and was the best quarterback that they've had and did a pretty good job and was probably one of the best quarterbacks in the league that year, you got to write his name in the history books as well. Again, Lucas O'Connor, a one-year guy. Braz, I know how you feel about one-year guys, but this guy definitely performed well. All right. Number 2, Kyle Sweet, first ever Triple Crown winner. You can't write the history without the first ever Triple Crown winner. All right. 1,117 catches, 117 catches, 1,561 total yards, 17 TDs. Man was a beast. Man was a beast. And listen, he did his thing for Barcelona. Led the league in a year where there was multiple 1,000-yard receivers. Just shows, his capabilities and how things were drawn up for him. And the plays he was able to make. I don't want to downplay, his playmaking ability, but he performed well. So shout out to Barcelona for having some dogs at receivers throughout the years, right? You can't write the history of the ELF without Kyle Sweet in it. And then the last one, it's an obvious one. Number one, Madre London. Let me break it down for you. 9 games, 2,009 yards, 22 touchdowns. You do the math. 5 games with 250 yards or more. 5 games with 3 touchdowns or more. 1 game where he was held under 100 yards rushing. Again, he still ended the year with 2,000 plus yards in 9 games. 5 games with at least 1 run or 60 yards or more. Madre London. Will we see Madre London again? Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know, but he'll go on and do some good things. And he really set the standard. Now, is he going to be able to do it in today's ELF? Competition's a lot better. Talent's way more spread out. He's a household name. Better coaches, better schemes. Can he do it? I don't know. I just know Cologne's running game ain't been right since. I know Cologne's passing game's been on point. Isaiah Wee did a good job this past year, but he is a legend in terms of ELF history, even though it was only 1 year. All right. So again, you can't write the history of the ELF without at least talking about some of these names. All right. And if you didn't hear me in the beginning, just know you're not going to see your guys that are actively playing right now on this list. Kyle Kitchens, Glenn Tungers, Jadrian Clark, Zach Edwards. You're not going to see those guys. But these are some guys that we can't forget, some legends we have to always remember, and guys that really set the foundation of the European League of Football. So, again, drop a comment in the locker room. Let me know what you think. Subscribe, share, join, be a friend, tell a friend. And, again, ELF Season 5, we got more stuff coming soon, maybe some more interviews, some more breakdowns as we get closer. OTAs, all season's got to kick off soon, and, yeah, let's get it going.